Have you ever imagined the moment your entire life gets torn apart in a single email, less than 7 lines long? I lived through that moment. The day I was laid off without warning, my whole world collapsed in silence. But they didn't know that buried in my hard drive were 37 files, data bullets that would shake every executive chair in that boardroom to its very foundation. They thought they could erase me with a signature. They never imagined I'd been collecting signatures of my own. My name is Madeline Ross. And for 7 years, I gave everything to Everhart Dynamics. 34 years old, single, living in a one-bedroom apartment in Granton, Illinois. I was what you'd call a perfect corporate soldier. Every morning at 6:47 a.m., I'd catch the blue line to our gleaming tower in the financial district. Coffee in one hand, laptop bag cutting into my shoulder, ready to bleed spreadsheets and breathe quarterly projections. Everhart Dynamics wasn't just any fintech company. We managed algorithmic trading systems for hedge funds, the kind of operation where a misplaced decimal could vaporize millions in microseconds. I was a senior analyst in the risk assessment division, not quite management, but high enough to see how the sausage was made, high enough to notice things others preferred to ignore. My desk sat on the 14th floor, third cubicle from the window, close enough to see daylight but never feel its warmth. The office was all gray carpets and white walls, punctuated by motivational posters nobody read. Integrity over a soaring eagle. Teamwork above clasped hands. The irony wasn't lost on me, especially when I'd hear Director Harrison screaming at his assistant through the thin walls, or watch VP Kumar take credit for work his team slaved over through weekends. I remember the small things that should have warned me. How conversations stopped when I entered the break room. How my boss, Patricia Stern, started copying HR on every email. How my keycard suddenly needed maintenance 3 times in 2 weeks. But I was too buried in Excel models and compliance reports to see the pattern. The thing about corporate America is that loyalty flows one direction, upward. I'd canceled vacations for emergency audits, missed my father's 60th birthday for a client crisis, worked through a bout of pneumonia because the team needed me. I kept a blanket in my desk drawer for those nights when going home seemed pointless, when I'd just have to return in 4 hours anyway. My coworkers called me the Vault, not as a compliment, but because I had this habit of documenting everything, every email, every memo, every seemingly insignificant conversation followed by a summary sent to myself. It started as a CYA practice after watching a colleague get thrown under the bus for a decision made in a meeting nobody could quite remember. I'd back up my work emails to my personal drive every Friday at 4 p.m. A ritual as routine as brewing coffee. "You're paranoid, Maddie." Jake from IT would laugh, watching me organize folders with dates and cryptic codes. Nobody's out to get you. But paranoia implies irrationality. And in those gray corridors where whispers carried more weight than performance reviews, documentation was my armor. What Jake didn't know, what nobody knew, was that my paranoia had accidentally captured something else entirely. Between the mundane project updates and meeting notes, I'd been unknowingly archiving a very different story. Emails about offshore accounts that didn't match our reported holdings. Contracts with shell companies that existed only on paper. Conversations about adjustments that happened after market close. I wasn't looking for dirt. I was just protecting myself in a place where the silence could swallow you whole. Where a smile from leadership might mean a promotion or a pink slip. And you'd never know which until security was escorting you out. The Friday before it happened, I worked until 10 p.m. finishing a risk analysis that Patricia needed first thing Monday. I remember standing by the window, watching the city lights blur through my exhaustion, thinking about the life I'd postponed for this job, the dates I'd canceled, the friends I'd lost touch with, the hobbies that had withered into LinkedIn skills I never actually used. My reflection in the glass looked hollow, designer bags under my eyes courtesy of 16-hour days, shoulders permanently hunched from leaning into monitors, skin pale as the fluorescent lights that had become my sun. But I told myself it would pay off. The promotion was coming. The sacrifice would mean something. I should have known better. In the ecosystem of Everhart Dynamics, I wasn't a valued employee. I was a function, a line item, a resource to be optimized or eliminated based on formulas I'd never see. The same algorithms we use to predict market volatility couldn't calculate the human cost of efficiency. That Sunday night, I ironed my clothes for Monday, set my alarm for 5:45 a.m., and reviewed my presentation notes one last time. I fell asleep thinking about quarterly projections and risk mitigation strategies, never imagining that in less than 12 hours, I'd become the risk that needed mitigating. Monday, 9:14 a.m. I was halfway through my morning coffee when Patricia's assistant appeared at my cubicle. "They need you in conference room C, now." The walk down that hallway stretched like a funeral procession. My heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing wrong. Conference room C wasn't where we held strategy meetings. It was the room with no windows, the one they used for terminations. Patricia sat at the head of the table, not making eye contact. Beside her, Marcus from HR clutched a manila folder like a life preserver. A security guard stood by the door, Tom, who I'd shared elevator rides with for 7 years, now avoiding my gaze like I'd become radioactive. "Madeline, please sit," Patricia said, her voice professionally neutral, stripped of the fake warmth she'd perfected in our one-on-ones. Marcus cleared his throat. "We're restructuring the risk assessment division. Your position has been eliminated, effective immediately." 7 words. That's all it took to delete 7 years. "I don't understand," I heard myself say. "My performance review last quarter." "This isn't about performance," Patricia interrupted, finally looking at me with eyes as cold as the conference room's recycled air. "It's a strategic realignment. We're moving in a different direction." Marcus slid papers across the table. "Your severance package, 2 weeks' pay. Sign here to acknowledge receipt and understanding that your employment with Everhart Dynamics terminates as of 9:17 a.m. today." 2 weeks? My voice cracked. The employee handbook states 1 month minimum for employees over 5 years. "That policy has been updated," Marcus said. "You'll also need to surrender your keycard, company laptop, and cell phone immediately. Your personal belongings will be boxed and sent to your home address." I stared at the signature line. "Can I at least say goodbye to my team? Transfer my projects?" "That won't be necessary. We've already reassigned your workload." Patricia stood, smoothing her $300 blazer. "Tom will escort you to collect any personal items from your desk. You have 5 minutes. 5 minutes to pack 7 years. Tom shadowed me to my cubicle, his presence turning familiar faces into strangers. Conversations died mid-sentence. Eyes found urgent business on computer screens. Jake from IT walked past without acknowledgement, as if I'd already ceased to exist. I grabbed my coffee mug, the one that said, "World's Okayest Employee." A secret Santa gift from better times. My spare heels, the blanket from my drawer, the photo of my parents I kept tucked behind my monitor. My hands shook as I disconnected my personal phone charger. "Time's up," Tom said, not unkindly, but firmly. The elevator ride down felt like descending into another dimension. My company email was already deactivated. I knew because my phone buzzed with authentication errors as we descended. 7 years of contacts, gone. Project files, gone. Even my parking access would be revoked by the time I reached my car. In the lobby, Tom held out a plastic bag for my keycard. "I'm sorry, Maddie," he whispered, breaking protocol. They did the same to 3 others this morning. Outside, the November wind cut through my blazer. I stood on the sidewalk, holding my pathetic box of possessions, watching people stream into the building I'd never enter again. My phone rang. "Patricia?" "Madeline, I forgot to mention. The severance includes a standard non-disclosure agreement and non-compete clause. You'll need to sign and return within 48 hours to receive your payout. Also, we'll need you to confirm deletion of any proprietary information you may have inadvertently retained." Inadvertently retained. Just standard protocol. "Oh, and Madeline? It would be best if you didn't reach out to current employees." We wouldn't want any misunderstandings about your departure. The line went dead. I stood there, my box getting heavier, watching my former life through revolving doors that would no longer turn for me. By the time I reached my car, 3 LinkedIn notifications informed me that my former colleagues had already updated their profiles, absorbing my responsibilities into their expanding roles. My work email had been scrubbed from company directories. The projects I'd shepherded for months now bore other names. I sat in my Honda Civic in the parking garage I'd never see again, engine running, heat on full blast, and finally let myself feel it. The humiliation, the betrayal, the fear. Rent was due in 2 weeks. My health insurance would end in 30 days. My identity, senior analyst, risk assessment division. Everhart Dynamics had been Ctrl+Alt+deleted. But as I pulled out of that garage for the last time, passing the security camera that would no longer recognize my face, one thought crystallized through the shock. They'd been so efficient in erasing me. They'd forgotten to ask about the backup drives. They'd forgotten about the vault. They'd forgotten that the woman they'd just discarded like obsolete software had been documenting everything, including things they never meant to be documented. The first 3 days, I didn't leave my apartment. I sat in my pajamas, laptop closed, phone on silent, watching Netflix shows I'd never remember. The severance papers lay unsigned on my kitchen counter, next to bills that wouldn't wait for me to find another job. $1,847 in rent, $340 for the car payment, $200 for utilities. My savings account held exactly $3,412, enough for maybe 2 months if I ate ramen and canceled everything that made life bearable. My mother called Wednesday evening. "How's work, honey?" "Fine, Mom." "Busy as always." The lie came so easily, I scared myself. "You sound tired. Are you taking care of yourself?" I stared at the wine bottle I'd been nursing since noon. "Always, Mom." Thursday night, the walls started closing in. My LinkedIn feed tortured me with former colleagues' success stories. Excited to announce my promotion to senior director. Thrilled to lead this amazing team, every post felt like salt in an open wound. I noticed none of them mentioned the restructuring. We'd been erased as cleanly as deleted code. I opened my second bottle of Pinot Noir at 9 p.m., the cheap kind from the corner store that tasted like regret and poor decisions. My laptop sat on the coffee table, its external hard drive blinking blue in the dim light. 3 terabytes of data. Automatically backed up every Friday at 4 p.m. for 2 years. My digital paranoia preserved in silicone and plastic. Just protecting myself. I told Jake. But had I been unconsciously building something else? Curiosity won over self-pity. I opened the drive. Folder after folder of emails, organized by date, spreadsheets, contracts, meeting recordings I'd forgotten I'd saved. At first, just the mundane detritus of corporate life. Budget proposals, risk assessments, compliance reports that could cure insomnia. Then I found the folder labeled Special Projects Q2. My wine glass stopped halfway to my lips. Email from CFO Davidson to Patricia. Need you to reclassify the Bermuda transfers, make them look like operational expenses. The auditors can't trace what doesn't exist on paper. Another, from VP Kumar to Director Harrison. The senator's campaign received their consulting fee. Make sure the invoice matches our agreed-upon narrative. I scrolled deeper, my heart pounding. Screenshots I'd taken when asked to briefly review documents above my clearance level. Photos of whiteboards from executive meetings where I delivered reports, capturing more than just my risk assessments, capturing their discussions after I'd been dismissed from the room. A video file I'd forgotten existed, my phone recording of Harrison bragging at the holiday party. Bourbon loosening his tongue about the creative accounting that funded his beach house. By 2 a.m., I'd identified patterns I'd been too busy or too blind to see while employed. Shell companies in the Caymans. Phantom employees drawing salaries. Government contracts won through bribes disguised as speaking fees. And at the center of it all, a cancer of corruption that went straight to the C-suite. I pushed away from the laptop, hands shaking. This wasn't just corporate malfeasance, this was criminal. Federal investigation criminal, FBI raid criminal, the kind of criminal that turned millionaire executives into federal inmates. Friday morning arrived with a hangover and a choice. I could sign the NDA, take my pathetic severance, and pray I'd find another job before my savings ran out. Delete the drive, forget what I'd seen, become another casualty of corporate America who disappeared quietly into the job market. Or, I made coffee, strong and black, and opened the drive again. This time, I took notes. Organized files into categories: financial fraud, bribery, tax evasion, campaign finance violations. Each folder a different flavor of felony. My phone rang. Patricia. Madeline, just checking on those severance papers. We need them signed today. I'm reviewing them carefully, I said, staring at a spreadsheet that showed $3.2 million in lost investor funds that had somehow found their way into executive bonuses. It's standard language, nothing to review. Really, just sign and return, and we'll process your payment Monday. Patricia, can I ask you something? A pause. What? Do you sleep well at night? I don't understand what you're... Never mind, I'll be in touch. I hung up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The fear had crystallized into something else, something harder and sharper. They'd taken my job, my identity, my security. They'd discarded me like a broken printer, efficient and emotionless. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated the woman who spent 7 years documenting everything, who'd built her entire career on risk assessment and damage control. They'd forgotten that the best risk analysts don't just identify threats, they understand exactly how those threats could destroy everything. I opened a new document and started typing. A list. Not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd found. 37 files that could burn Everhart Dynamics to the ground. The question wasn't whether I'd use them. The question was how. Saturday night. I transformed my living room into a war room. 3 years of data spread across my coffee table, laptop screen glowing with spreadsheets, external monitors borrowed from my old home office setup displaying email threads. I'd switched from wine to coffee, from self-pity to surgical precision. The process was methodical, almost meditative. Every file got scrutinized, cross-referenced, verified. I wasn't just looking for dirt anymore, I was building cases. Federal cases. The kind that end with perp walks and CNBC breaking news alerts. File number 1. Email chain between Davidson and Harrison. Discussing how to hide $4.7 million in investor funds through a shell company in Cyprus. I had the incorporation documents, the wire transfer receipts, even Davidson's sloppy mistake of using his corporate email to set up the offshore account. File number 7. Patricia's detailed instructions to the accounting team on reclassifying executive bonuses as research and development expenses to avoid taxes. $18 million in tax fraud, documented with the thoroughness of someone who never thought the IRS would see it. File number 13. A recording from my phone. Accidentally left running during a board meeting where I'd presented risk assessments. After I'd been dismissed, the conversation had turned to bribing a federal regulator. $50,000 should make him forget what he saw. Kumar's voice, clear as day. The deeper I dug, the more I understood why they'd fired me. Not restructuring, not strategic realignment. Fear. Someone had realized the vault knew too much, had access to too much. Better to eliminate the risk than contain it. File number 19 made me stop breathing for 30 seconds. A PDF I'd saved while helping Patricia with a presentation. Hidden in the metadata, comments she'd forgotten to delete. M. Ross asking too many questions about the Singapore transfers. Recommend termination before Q4 audit. There it was. My death sentence, typed in Arial 11-point font. I spent hours narrowing down the selection. Thousands of files contained varying degrees of misconduct. But I needed precision. Too many. And it would look like desperation, too few, and they might weather the storm. I needed exactly enough to ensure total destruction. By 4 a.m. Sunday, I had my arsenal. 37 files that told a complete story of systematic corruption, each one verified, documented, indisputable. Together, they painted a picture that no PR firm could spin, no lawyer could explain away, no amount of money could bury. File number 24. The Senator's Chief of Staff confirming the quid pro quo for the government contract. The donation was received. The contract will be approved Thursday. File number 29. Harrison's email to the entire executive team, with an attached spreadsheet showing how they'd manipulated earnings reports for 6 consecutive quarters, inflating stock prices by 34%. File plus 3031. A video from the company retreat where Kumar, drunk on premium vodka, explained to junior executives how to properly structure bribes to foreign officials. It's not corruption if you call it consulting. He'd laughed. The crown jewel was file number 37, Davidson's private folder, which I'd been asked to organize when his assistant was sick. Bank statements from accounts that didn't appear on any corporate filing. $47 million in embezzled funds. Traced transaction by transaction. He'd been stealing from the company while laying off employees to cut costs. I created a master document, an index that explained each file's significance in language a first-year law student could understand. No legal jargon, no financial doublespeak. Just clear, damning truth. The kind of truth that makes handcuffs click and stock prices crater. Then I built the distribution list. Every board member's personal email, gathered from the company directory I'd screenshot before my access was cut, the SEC's whistleblower email. 3 journalists who specialized in financial crimes, whose articles I'd been reading for years, the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit, the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division, and, because I wanted them to know it was me, Patricia's personal Gmail. I packaged everything into an encrypted folder, 2.3 gigabytes of corporate suicide. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I slept. Really slept. 8 hours of dreamless black. My body finally releasing the tension it had carried since Monday morning. I woke Sunday afternoon to 17 missed calls from Patricia. 3 from Marcus in HR. 1 from a number I didn't recognize with a 312 area code, corporate's lawyers. Probably. The severance deadline had passed. They were worried. They should be. I made myself a proper meal for the first time all week. Pasta with real sauce, not from a jar. A salad with vegetables that hadn't wilted from neglect. I ate slowly, tasting every bite, while my laptop sat closed on the counter, the loaded gun waiting for me to pull the trigger. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake in IT. Heard what happened. That's fucked up. You okay? I thought about responding. Jake was decent, one of the few, but he was still there, still part of the machine. Tomorrow, he'd be collateral damage. I deleted his text and opened my laptop. The encrypted folder sat on my desktop, named simply Truth. 37 files, 7 years of evidence. 1 click to destroy the people who'd destroyed me. My father had taught me that revenge was a dish best served cold, but he'd never mentioned how hot your blood runs right before you serve it. Sunday evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad, writing and crossing out draft emails like a novelist struggling with an opening line. How do you compose the message that will destroy a Fortune 500 company? What subject line do you use for corporate annihilation? Dear board members, you're all going to prison. Too aggressive. Concerned citizen with important information. Too passive. Everhart dynamics, financial irregularities. Too clinical. I crumpled another sheet and poured myself tea instead of wine. I needed clarity, not courage. The files were ready, the recipients selected. But something held me back, a nagging voice that sounded annoyingly like my father's. Consider the consequences, Maddie. Not just for them, but for you. The consequences. Whistleblower protection only went so far. My name would eventually surface. Every future employer would Google me and find the woman who brought down Everhart Dynamics. Hero to some, pariah to others, but unemployable to all. No corporation would trust someone who kept receipts. I walked to my window, watching Chicago's Sunday night traffic crawl below. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, unaware that above them sat a woman with her finger on a detonator. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Madeline, this is James Morrison. I was let go from Everhart on Monday too. James, senior developer from the tech division. We'd barely spoken beyond elevator pleasantries, but I remembered his baby photos plastered across his cubicle. How did you get my number? LinkedIn. I'm sorry to bother you, but I heard you were part of the Monday massacre too. Did they give you the same bullshit, strategic realignment? Almost word for word. A bitter laugh. 7 people, Maddie. They cut 7 of us. All senior staff with full benefits. You know what I found out? They're hiring contractors to do our exact jobs at half the cost. No benefits. No severance obligations. How's your family taking it? Silence. Then, quietly, my wife's pregnant. Due in March. The insurance. I'm sorry, James. My kid's college fund is gone. We'll have to move in with her parents. 15 years I gave them, and they threw me away to save a few dollars on their quarterly report. His voice cracked. I keep wondering if I did something wrong. You didn't. Trust me. How do you know? I stared at my laptop, the encrypted folder glowing on the screen. Because I have proof that this company's rot goes all the way to the top. The layoffs were just them clearing potential witnesses. Witnesses to what? Everything. A long pause. Are you going to do something about it? I'm thinking about it. Think harder. My daughter won't have health insurance because Davidson needed another yacht. Your thinking won't pay my mortgage. He hung up. I sat in the dark, his words echoing. 7 families destroyed so executives could marginally improve their profit margins while stealing millions. 7 people who'd played by the rules, only to learn the game was rigged. I opened my laptop and pulled up Davidson's social media. Posted 6 hours ago, a photo from his yacht in Miami. Living my best life. Blessed Sunday Fun Day. That did it. I created a new email account. Truth about Everhart Proton Mail. Calm. Anonymous. Encrypted. Untraceable. Then I typed, subject. Everhart Dynamics, evidence of systematic financial crimes, dear recipients. Attached you will find 37 documented instances of financial fraud, embezzlement, bribery, and tax evasion perpetrated by the executive leadership of Everhart Dynamics. This evidence includes emails, financial records, recordings, and internal documents that detail $47 million in embezzled funds, $18 million in tax fraud, bribes to federal officials totaling $2.3 million, securities fraud affecting thousands of investors, campaign finance violations. Each file is authenticated and includes metadata proving its origin. An index is provided for ease of review. This information is being simultaneously sent to regulatory agencies, law enforcement, and media outlets. The truth will no longer be strategically realigned. A former employee. I attached the encrypted folder, password protected. Then I created a second email with just the password to be sent 5 minutes after the first. Old habits from risk assessment always have a failsafe. But I still didn't send it. Instead, I called my father in Denver. It was late, but he answered on the second ring. Maddie, everything okay? Dad, if you could hurt the people who hurt you, but it might destroy your future too, would you do it? He was quiet for a moment. Is this about your job? Yeah. Are these people criminals? Yes. Would stopping them help others? I thought about James's pregnant wife. The other 5 people fired with us. The investors being defrauded. The taxpayers footing the bill for corporate theft. Yes. Then your future's already different than you planned, sweetheart. The question is, do you want to be someone who got knocked down or someone who knocked back. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for another hour. At 11:47 p.m., I opened the draft email again. Added one more recipient, the Chicago Tribune Investigative Unit. My cursor hovered over send. Monday, 12:03 a.m. The rain started just as I clicked send. The progress bar filled slowly. 2.3 gigabytes of evidence crawling through encrypted servers. 47% complete. 62%. 78%. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape what I'd just done. 100%. Message sent. I sat back, waiting to feel something. Relief? Regret? Victory? Instead, just emptiness and the sound of rain against windows. 5 minutes later, the second email went out with the password. No turning back now. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Somewhere across the city, phones were about to start buzzing. Secure inboxes would light up with notifications. By morning, 37 files would be spreading through law firms, newsrooms, and federal agencies like digital wildfire. At 12:31 a.m., my phone rang. Patricia? I let it ring. At 12:34 a.m., another call. Davidson. I turned my phone off and poured myself a whiskey, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion. If destroying a Fortune 500 company didn't qualify, nothing would. I couldn't sleep. Instead, I sat in my living room, lights off, rain pattering, imagining the chaos about to unfold. Patricia opening her personal Gmail, face draining of color. Davidson on his yacht, champagne turning to ash in his mouth. Kumar being woken by his lawyer. Harrison Googling extradition treaties. At 3 a.m., I turned my phone back on. 43 missed calls. 17 voicemails. Hundreds of texts. I deleted them all without reading, but one name made me pause. Tom, the security guard. Maddie, I don't know what you did, but there are lawyers here, FBI too. They're seizing computers. Davidson's assistant is crying. I've never seen anything like this. Be safe. By 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made coffee. I opened my laptop to check the news. Nothing yet. These things took time. Journalists needed to verify, lawyers needed to review, investigators needed to investigate. At 7:22 a.m., the first story broke. Breaking, SEC, investigating Everhart Dynamics following whistleblower documents. At 8:15 a.m., the second, FBI raids fintech firm offices after evidence of massive fraud surfaces. At 9:00 a.m., CNBC picked it up. Everhart Dynamics stock halted as criminal investigation unfolds. I watched the coverage from my couch, still in yesterday's clothes, coffee cold in my hands. Reporters standing outside the building I'd been escorted from a week ago. The stock price, when trading resumed, fell 73% in 12 minutes. $4.2 billion market value evaporated. My phone rang again. A 202 area code, Washington, D.C. Ms. Ross? Who is this? Special Agent Sarah Coleman, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We received your documentation. We'd like to speak with you. I don't know what you're talking about. Ms. Ross? We traced the email metadata. We know it was you. You're not in trouble. We need your help understanding these files. I want immunity. Full whistleblower protection. In writing. We can arrange that. Can you come to our field office today? I'll think about it. I hung up and turned back to the news. They were showing Davidson being led out in handcuffs, trying to hide his face with his suit jacket. Patricia was next, stumbling in her designer heels, photographers pressing close. Kumar was apparently attempting to flee to India, but had been stopped at O'Hare. The rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating my shabby apartment. For the first time in a week, I smiled. At noon, Harrison's lawyer called. My client is willing to offer you $5 million for a statement saying the documents were fabricated. Tell Harrison he can take his money and $10 million. I hung up. By 2 p.m., Everhart scandal was trending. Employees were posting their stories. Not just the Monday Massacre 7, but hundreds who'd been mistreated, underpaid, overworked, discarded. The files had broken the dam, and now everyone was flooding through. At 3 p.m., James Morrison called. "Was it you?" "I don't know what you mean." "Maddie, I'm watching Davidson do a perp walk on live TV. Was it you?" "Does it matter?" "My wife's crying, happy tears. She says whoever did this is a hero." "Tell her heroes don't hide behind anonymous email accounts. Tell her yourself. You saved us all." At 5 p.m., I finally opened one email. From Jake in IT. "I always knew the vault would be their downfall. Thank you." As darkness fell on Monday night, I sat in the same spot where I'd clicked send 18 hours earlier. The local news was doing a special report. 7 executives arrested. Trading suspended indefinitely. Federal investigation expanding. Class action lawsuits already being filed. I picked up my phone and called my father. "Did you knock back, sweetheart?" "I knocked them out, Dad." "Good. What's next?" I looked at my laptop, at the news breaking across every screen, at the mighty Everhart dynamics collapsing like a controlled demolition. I have no idea. That's the best place to start. The rain began again. Softer this time. Somewhere in the city, 7 families were breathing easier. Somewhere else, 7 executives were calling their lawyers from federal holding cells. And in a small apartment in Chicago, a woman who'd been erased was writing herself back into existence, one truth at a time. Tuesday morning, I watched from my apartment as the empire crumbled in real time. CNN had a split screen, Everhart's empty trading floor on one side, FBI agents carrying boxes of evidence on the other. The ticker scrolled endless updates. CFO Davidson denied bail, flight risk. Sen. Williams returns Everhart donations. Emergency board meeting called as shareholders file lawsuit. My laptop had become a window into their destruction. Financial blogs dissected every file I'd sent, finding connections I'd missed. Reddit threads mapped the corruption network like a conspiracy theorist's dream come true. Twitter had Poors, Sounds Everhart 37 files trending globally. At 10 a.m., an emergency all-hands meeting was broadcast on someone's Instagram Live. The interim CEO, brought in from outside, stood before the remaining employees in the auditorium where I'd once received my 5-year service award. "Everhart Dynamics has failed you," he began. The corruption exposed yesterday goes against everything this company claimed to represent." The feed showed faces I recognized, junior analysts who'd worked 80-hour weeks, admins who'd skipped lunches to meet impossible deadlines, developers who'd built the very systems the executives had used to steal. They looked shell-shocked, relieved, furious. "Effective immediately. All executive bonuses are frozen pending investigation. Those funds will be redistributed to employees affected by recent layoffs." My phone buzzed. Direct deposit, $47,000, my full severance, plus what looked like 3 months' salary. A note attached. Board Resolution 2024, 11-12. Emergency compensation for wrongfully terminated employees. I stared at the number. It wouldn't bring back the 7 years, but it would buy me time to figure out what came next. The Chicago Tribune posted an editorial at noon. The whistleblower who saved investors billions. They'd connected the dots, traced the anonymous email despite my precautions. My name was out there now, for better or worse. At 2 p.m., Patricia's mugshot appeared on every screen. Orange jumpsuit, no makeup, eyes hollow with the realization that her Armani suits couldn't protect her anymore. The headline: Former VP Stern confesses, agrees to testify against co-conspirators. She was flipping. They always did when the handcuffs came out. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Journalists wanting exclusive interviews, law firms offering to represent me in civil suits, tech companies pretending they valued ethical employees like yourself. I ignored them all. At 4 p.m., Kumar's suicide attempt made breaking news. He'd tried to overdose in federal custody, was on watch at Northwestern Memorial, I felt nothing. Then I felt guilty for feeling nothing. Then I remembered the 7 families he'd destroyed without blinking. The Bloomberg terminal footage was beautiful in its brutality. Everhart's stock had been delisted, bonds rated junk, credit lines frozen. Investment firms were pulling out like rats from a burning ship. The company that had existed for 43 years would be bankrupt by Friday. At 6 p.m., Special Agent Coleman called again. The Attorney General wants to thank you personally. Tell him he's welcome. Ms. Ross, your cooperation could ensure these people never work in finance again. They're already finished. But with your testimony, Agent Coleman, I gave you 37 files. If you can't convict with that, you're in the wrong job. I hung up and returned to the news. A panel of experts was debating whether I was a hero or a traitor. She violated her fiduciary duty, one said. She exposed criminal activity. Another countered. But the means revealed the truth. At 8 p.m., someone leaked the full email list I'd sent to. Every board member's personal address exposed. They were getting flooded with hate mail, death threats, their own medicine of public humiliation. Their lawyers were on TV within minutes, calling for investigations into the leak. The irony was delicious. At 10 p.m., I finally answered a call from a 312 number. Madeline Ross. Yes? This is Michael Sterling from the SEC Whistleblower Office. Based on the recovery expected from your disclosure, you're entitled to a reward between 10 and 30% of sanctions collected. What does that mean? Conservative estimate, you're looking at approximately $12 million. I dropped my phone. $12 million, more money than I'd see in 3 lifetimes at Everhart. Blood money, some would call it justice. I preferred at midnight. I cracked open my laptop one more time. The Everhart Dynamics website was down, replaced with a federal seizure notice. Their social media accounts were floods of employee testimonies, investor rage, and memes about corporate greed. But the best part was a small item in the Wall Street Journal's overnight edition. Everhart board members face personal bankruptcy as courts pierce corporate veil. They'd hidden behind the company for years, letting it shield them from consequences. Now that shield was gone, and their personal assets were fair game for lawsuits. Davidson's yacht, Patricia's Manhattan condo, Kumar's art collection, all soon to be liquidated to pay back investors and employees. I closed my laptop and walked to my window. The city sparkled below, indifferent to the corporate massacre that had played out in its towers. Tomorrow, the news cycle would move on. New scandals, new heroes, new villains. But tonight, 7 executives were learning what it felt like to lose everything without warning. Tonight, the tremors from 37 files were still shaking boardrooms across the country. Tonight, I'd won. Wednesday morning arrived with a strange calm. The storm had passed, leaving wreckage in its wake, but the sun still rose over Lake Michigan like nothing had changed. I stood at my window, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. My phone sat silent on the counter. I'd changed the number yesterday, given it only to my parents and Agent Coleman. The reporters, lawyers, and opportunists could scream into the void of my old voicemail. The news played on mute behind me. Davidson's estate was being raided. Harrison had fled to Ecuador. Good luck with that extradition treaty. Patricia's testimony was apparently devastating. 3 more executives arrested overnight. The Department of Justice was calling it the largest corporate fraud case in Illinois history. But I wasn't watching anymore. That chapter was closed. At noon, I walked to Lakeshore Drive, my first time outside in 3 days. The November wind cut sharp and clean, washing away the stale air of revenge and vindication. Joggers passed, oblivious to the woman who'd just toppled a Fortune 500 company. Dogs chased balls. Life continued. My new phone buzzed. James Morrison had somehow gotten the number. The 7 of us are meeting for drinks Friday. You should come. I don't think. Maddie, you gave us our dignity back. The least we can do is buy you a beer. Maybe it would be good to remember I wasn't alone in this. I kept walking north, no destination in mind. At Fullerton Beach, I stopped and stared at the endless water. Somewhere behind me, Everhart's building was being emptied, logos removed, contracts dissolved. 43 years of corporate history erased faster than my 7 years had been. The settlement money would come through in 18 months. Coleman had confirmed $12 million for doing what anyone with a conscience should have done. I'd already decided half would go to the other 6 who were fired with me. They deserved more than just their severance. A text from my father. Saw you on the news. Your mother says you look thin. Come home for Thanksgiving. Home. I'd figure out where that was eventually. For now, Chicago still had its hold on me, even with its towers full of corruption and its streets stained with corporate blood. By evening, I was back in my apartment, packing boxes, not because I had anywhere to go, but because I needed to move forward. The apartment held too many ghosts, late nights reviewing spreadsheets, early mornings rushing to a job that was slowly killing me, the week of rage that birthed 37 files. As I wrapped my coffee mug, world's okayest employee, I allowed myself one last look at the news. Everhart Dynamics had officially filed for bankruptcy. 8,000 employees would lose their jobs by Friday. The ripple effects would spread through the industry for months. Retirements lost, careers ended, lives disrupted. Was I responsible for that? Maybe. But I wasn't the one who built a company on lies, who stole millions while preaching integrity, who fired people to cover crimes. I just lit the match. They'd soaked themselves in gasoline. My laptop dinged with an encrypted message, unknown sender. But it had passed my security filters. You don't know me, but I work at Matheson Financial. We're cleaning house because of what you did. 3 executives fired today after internal audit. Your 37 files are making every corrupt exec in the city lose sleep. Thank you. I deleted the message but kept the sentiment. Maybe that was enough, knowing that boardrooms across the city were suddenly very interested in actual compliance, actual ethics, actual consequences. The sun set behind the skyline, painting the glass towers gold and red, beautiful and cold, like justice itself. Tomorrow, I'd start over. New city. Maybe. New career. Definitely. The woman who'd walked into Everhart Dynamics 7 years ago was gone. Replaced by someone harder, sharper, unafraid of burning bridges because she'd learned some bridges lead nowhere worth going. But tonight, I raised a glass of that good whiskey to the window, toasting the city that had tried to break me. You wanted me gone, I said to the glittering lights. You got your wish. The champagne toast in boardrooms had turned to vinegar. The strategic realignment had become a federal investigation. The 7 people they'd discarded like obsolete hardware had survived, while their 43-year-old institution lay in ruins. I smiled, closed the blinds, and turned away from the city. No looking back, no regrets. Just forward, into whatever came next, carrying the knowledge that sometimes, just sometimes, the little guy wins. Sometimes, 37 files are enough to shake the world. Sometimes, the vault holds more than just memories. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate revenge and justice. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Madeline's situation? Your stories and perspectives make this community special. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight.